Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandanam Braja Janaranjanam Yashodanandanam Braja Janaranjanam Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Stotarasat Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Vrindavadam Ki Jai Shri Mathuradam Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Brihat Mridanga Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Dhṛtarāṣṭra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamni Namaste Saraswati Devi Vishesha Srinivadi Pasachadi Shatarini Hare Krishna. So let's do our prayers for the Srimad Bhagavatam, for Lord Krishna, who is the emanation of all this source of knowledge. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to read Srimad Bhagavatam today, first canto. I was asked to give a class on verse 12 and 13, but I can see there 32 and 33. Was anybody here yesterday in the class? So this is the natural next verse. So 12 and 13 have long passed. It's gone already. Okay. So they told me, give a class on verse 12 and 13. And I studied for verse 12 and 13. But let's see what verse 33 and 32 talks about. Okay. It matches. No problem. We can do that. So just read the Sanskrit very quickly. Tatra sajayam asinam prapacho dvigna manasaha galvagane kvanastato vrido hinascha netrayo. So this verse says, Maharaj Yudhishthira, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, O Sanjaya, where is our uncle, who is old and blind? And verse 33 says, ambā hata-putrārtā pitṛvyaḥ suhṛt api mayy akṛta-prajñe hata-bandhuḥ bhāryayā āśaṁsamānaḥ śamalam, gaṅgāyāṁ duḥkhito patat. So it says here, ambā, mother, aunt, cha, and hata-putrā, who had lost all her sons, ārtā, in a sorry plight, pitṛvyaḥ, uncle Vidura, qua, where, gataḥ, gone, suhṛt, well-wisher, api, whether, mayi, unto me, akṛta-prajñe, ungrateful, hata-bandhuḥ, one who has lost all his sons, saha Dhṛtarāṣṭra, bhāryayā, with his wife, āśaṁsamānaḥ, in doubtful mind, śamalam, offenses, gaṅgāyāṁ, in the Ganges water, duḥkhitaḥ, in distressed mind, patat, fell down. So there's a beautiful translation for that. It says, where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura, and Mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to all her sons' demise? My uncle Dhṛtarāṣṭra was also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I'm very ungrateful. Did he therefore take my offenses very seriously or not? Very seriously, and along with his wife, drown himself in the Ganges. So the purport says, the Pandavas, especially Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna, anticipated the after effects of the battle of Kurukshetra, and therefore Arjuna declined to execute the fighting. The fight was executed by the will of the Lord, but the effects of family aggrievement, as they had thought of it before, had come to be true. Maharaj Yudhishthira was always conscious of the great plight of his uncle Dhṛtarāṣṭra and aunt Gandhari, and therefore he took all possible care of them in their old age in aggrieved conditions. When therefore he could not find his uncle and aunt in the palace, naturally his doubts arose, and he conjectured that they had gone down to the water of the Ganges. He thought himself ungrateful because when the Pandavas were fatherless, Maharaj Dhṛtarāṣṭra had given them all royal facilities to live, and in return he had killed all Dhṛtarāṣṭra's sons in the battle of Kurukshetra. As a pious man, Maharaj Yudhishthira took into account all his unavoidable misdeeds, and he never thought of the misdeeds of his uncles and company. Dhṛtarāṣṭra had suffered the effects of his own misdeeds by the will of the Lord, but Maharaj Yudhishthira was thinking only of his own unavoidable misdeeds. That is mature. That is the nature of a good man and devotee of the Lord. A devotee never finds faults with others, but tries to find his own and thus rectify them as far as possible. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjanan Shalakaya Chakshur Anmilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadatika Padandikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for one more opportunity to share my very humble realization with such an auspicious audience of Vaishnavas who are in the Holy Dham, chanting the glories of the Lord and trying to uplift their own spiritual practices. As one of you, I'm here today chosen to share with you some humble realizations. It so happens that they asked me to give my realizations on 20 verses before, verses 11 and 12. 12 and 13. So I just looked. But it's all very Krishna's arrangement, because I can just see from what I had prepared how this just links very well. So I'll give you a little brief of what I had planned if it was verse 12 and 13. In verse 12 and 13, Vidura is preparing to meet the Pandavas. He has arrived. He was taken excellent care by Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was given facility, he was given a place to rest, he was given a place to refresh himself. And that's all very conducive, because in the Vedas, the thing is not about efficiency, it's about culture. So first he was received with all due respect. When he was ready, he came to greet the Pandavas, who were so anxious. And actually, the previous verses from this 11, 12 and 13 say that they were crying just by seeing Vidura. Just like today when I was in the temple and I saw that His Grace Jananivas Prabhu was greeting the deities, my heart was so filled with joy. And I was actually a little bit emotional, thinking, Krishna, I know all of us have been praying that His great soul is here with us, and here He is. Thank you. So like this, the Pandavas were relating to this wonderful personality, Vidura, who was in front of them with all the gratefulness that they could afford for a pure devotee. And the reason why in that verse, the verse is so interesting, this verse, because every word counts. It says, compassionate Mahatma Vidura. Only these 3 sentences could be our Bhagavatam class. Because from compassionate you can understand what were the qualities which were vibrating within his consciousness. And if you study today's psychology, you'll see that people reflect first survival, and then a little bit of identity, self-esteem, self-actualization, and it kind of, Maslow kind of gets there. And some people go further that line until they get to service. On the 7th layer, there is a site, interesting, by Barrett, and he's saying the 7th layer is service. And in that 7th layer of service, he says that, I actually got it for you, he says, the qualities which are there are compassion, forgiveness, humility, contribution for future generations. So, in the outside world, the secular society is coming to realize that when someone is actually selfless, he's the best person to have on your side, because he will always think how to facilitate, how to fix the little lackings that a system, a place, a company, a family may have. So in the corporate world, now instead of looking at your resume, this is the greatest person in IT, they look, how much selfless service have you done in your life? Have you ever volunteered for something? Because they're thinking, this person will actually make a difference in my team. Now, in the spiritual world, in the spiritual association of devotees, this is such a deep science, and actually is the basis of our science. So there's 3 first words, compassionate, Mahatma, Vidura, could be our whole Bhagavatam class of today. And it links perfectly with this verse, and I'm going to get there. Compassionate because he is in that level of feeling compassion for the world. Dhṛtarāṣṭra was the emperor of the world. And he became like that because he took away by force, by trickery, by so many kind of deceitful means, the rightful throne of the Pandavas. And in this situation, the most drastic penalties have been afflicted to the Pandavas. For example, to have their dearest wife insulted in public by great personalities. We cannot imagine what it is if your guru, your father, your preceptor, your authority sees you being harassed and just stands and looks. That's a very deep pain because you feel completely unsheltered. And they went through that, and not only that, now they had to go out and be banished to a forest, and then they attempted to kill him by burning, by poisoning, any means possible to get rid of them. And all they wanted was to coexist. They said, it's okay, you be the emperor, you be the king, we just coexist. Give us 5 little pieces of land and we'll be very happy. 5 villages, so that we can execute our dharma, which is to be a kshatriya. And a kshatriya needs a place to rule. So just give us a village, each of the Pandavas, and you can be the emperor, and we'll not remember anything you did to us. Vidura understood these qualities of the Pandavas, and he himself had those qualities, and he was advising the emperor, Dhṛtarāṣṭra, not to allow that to happen, because he was the emperor after all. But he had a very deep fault. Do you know what the fault was? Anybody in the audience? He was greedy, but he understood the Pandavas should be there. He was okay with giving five villages. He was even okay, and he gave back half of their kingdom at one point. So what was Dhṛtarāṣṭra's fault? Perfect. That's bingo. He was so... Especially Duryodhana. Yes, mother and son. See, Bhakti Shastri and Bhakti Vaibhav, right there. Who is who, they'll decide. Now, exactly, that is the point. He was so attached to his son, he could not see that his son was doing something so bad that it would destroy the whole dynasty. It will simply destroy the whole dynasty. And why would it destroy the whole dynasty? Because in the Vedas it is unacceptable to harass a chaste woman without punishment. It is unacceptable to usurp, to rob, to steal with deceitful means without being punished by the laws of nature. So the Vedas actually propose something which is universal. It's just the natural laws of nature. And the more we are aware of those laws, the better we understand how the world functions, the better we understand how to get out of this world, which has all these very enticing and intrinsic laws, and actually put ourselves on a much higher platform, which is the next word of my 3 words, Mahatma, Vidura. I didn't even discuss Mahatma. Why is he called Mahatma? Well, a Mahatma is there because, first of all, what is the first quality of a Mahatma? Why is he called Mahatma? Anybody? Exactly, and specifically, there is why he's engaged in the Lord's service. He's surrendered to the Lord. He is surrendered to the Lord. So that's the Adi Lakshana of a Mahatma. There's so many qualities of a Mahatma, but that's the one which is the foundational quality. He is surrendered to the Lord. And if you read books from the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, you see that when Srila Prabhupada brought surrendered devotees of the Lord to India. And they were in a completely different outside clothes. They were white. They had blue eyes. And the community here in India were mesmerized how these people have now become fully surrendered to the Lord. How is it that this Swamiji has made all these people surrender to the Lord and therefore considered Mahatmas? We even have one of his, which is called Mahatma Prabhu, which is a wonderful Mahatma. And so many other Mahatmas, isn't it? All your Guru Maharajas probably are in that category of Mahatmas, not to name all of them. So, Vidura was a Mahatma because he was fully surrendered to the Lord. And his mind was always thinking how to please the Lord. He was thinking how to help his brother, Dhṛtarāṣṭra, who was the emperor, who had allowed his son out of attachment to go against Dharma, to go against religion, to do very unreasonable activities without saying, no, I will not allow this. And he could not understand the gravity that he was going through until the very end, when there is war. Now, after the war, we all are very familiar with the war, everybody was annihilated. Nothing is left. And in that verse, 11, 12 actually, 13, Vidura is coming to greet the Pandavas, but he has a very bad news to give. All of the Yadu dynasty has also disappeared. And he does not say that. He does not speak that. And the explanation is because he does not want to give something which is not beneficial. And bad news will come anyway. So his mind is always thinking, how can I help everyone who's in front of me? That is real austerity of speech, Prabhupada says. Austerity of speech is to tell the truth which is beneficial and not hurting to others. And how many times we face ourselves angry. You know, you want to say something because you're so angry. And we forget this Bhagavad Gita perception that a real truth is when it's not hurtful for others. Isn't it? It's transformational. The Bhagavad Gita is transformational. It is not a book of simple knowledge in the mind. It's a book of knowledge in action. Realized knowledge in behavior. How I behave. How I conduct myself in the most difficult situations. Because when you're full of funds and Lakshmi and opulences, everybody wants to be your friend, everybody wants to be around. When you lose them, that's when you get to know who are your real friends. You know, who are the people who really care about you? Because you wouldn't have any of those to offer, but still there is affection. And affection is a quality of surrender. When an attachment is a law of possession. So Dhṛtarāṣṭra is attached because he wants to have that opulence. He wants to maintain his position. And he's afraid that if he hurts his son, he will lose that relationship with his son. So who's going to take care of him? Who is in a very difficult situation? He's blind. But he cannot see that Yudhishthira Maharaj, now we come to this verse, the verse of today, is so well-wishing for him despite everything he did. Despite all the actions that he was a co-author, he is forgiving him, and not only forgiving, because you can forgive from a distance and say, okay, I forgive you, but you there, me here. But he's forgiving from the perspective, where is my uncle? Have I been not careful enough to take care of him so he feels home and welcome, and he's protecting his elderly age? Mother Gandhari lost all her sons, so that is very, very difficult. If any of you have lost a relative recently or in the past, or you know what it means. Because that person is almost like a property of your existence. he cannot go because he belongs to your existence, you know. And when that person is taken from your existence, you realize that that person was never part of your real property. Actually realize, not even my body is my property. This belongs to someone else, and it will be taken at one point. So he understood that perfectly, and he was saying, she has lost all of these members, relatives, well-wishers. And have I not done my duty? And that is the topic today. That is the lamentation of Maharaj Yudhisthira. I'll go back a little bit. A month ago, I gave a class here. They asked me to give a class, and I was sharing my realizations. And I brought lenses. I don't know if any of you are here, but I brought lenses, you know, like a pair of glasses, to look at the verse. And it was from a psychologist in America. His name is Dan Heath, and he calls the power of moments. And he says our memory is guided by these moments. We remember transitions, we remember difficult moments, or we remember something remarkable that happened. And he says that connection is one of the things that makes us remember something, when there's a deep connection. And he says a deep connection is triggered by three things. It's understanding, validation, and caring. And the verse, in that verse, Krishna, understanding Maharaj Yudhisthira desired to make a ceremony, a yajna. He told them where the gold was in the north of Himalayas from a pious king in the past. So that verse was shedding light how Krishna understood, validated, and cared for Maharaj Yudhisthira. And that created a great connection, so much so that is registered in the Srimad Bhagavatam pages. And here, that same lenses, we could look at Maharaj Yudhisthira. He understands what's happening to Dhṛtarāṣṭra and to Mother Gandhari. And he validates their griefs. He says, yes, they lost all their relatives. They're in a very difficult situation. And he cares for them. Where are they? Have they been lost? Are they drowned in the Ganges? And that's my fault, because I haven't taken care of them. And sometimes we read this and we attribute this quality to the Mahatmas. Oh yes, this belongs to the Mahatmas. Not to me, I'm not a Mahatma. This belongs to them. But if we bring it to our perspective, to our house, to our family, to our neighborhood, we start to see that in order to have deep connections, we need to understand. We need to validate, and we need to care. Whoever is a parent here and has had a teenagers, that's the hardest time in their lives, because we all have been teenagers. We are trying to become ourselves, but we are almost one with our parents. So we must come out of that identity and survive that, that moment of separation, and then again reunite as a family. So for parents to understand, validate, and care is utmost important. I say this to myself, and I can see how many times I walk in with preconceived ideas, preconceived concepts, and I don't realize how I, this practitioner of bhakti, have to apply that in my life. Similarly here, Maharaj Yudhisthira is applying that, and that is the formula of community. Because if you think the fault is within me, automatically there's no fault with anybody else. Automatically, the previous verse, Vidura was restricting himself from giving bad news to the Pandavas. So we aggravate, through propaganda. And then you say, do you know what happened? And then you start to aggravate. Did you see that happen to that Brahma? And then we are just propagating. And through the grapevine, this great vibration of words is actually aggravating things. And that is coming from us not really thinking, I should apply this to my own life. I should apply this austerity of speech to myself, thinking what I speak should be beneficial and conducive to Krishna consciousness. Because in that protected environment, bhakti will be able to flourish. So that is the real purpose of us being here in Sri Mayapur. Because we're here because we're looking for a protected environment for a Bhakti Lata beach to grow to the lotus feet of the Lord. Isn't it? Isn't that why we came here? If you make an internal evaluation, why did I come to Sri Mayapur? Is it because of the momos or the doshas? There are so many doshas and Mahaprasadam. Oh, Mayapur is not so expensive to live. Maybe I can get by in Mayapur. What are the reasons? Why did we come here? I'm sure all of us made a choice because Mayapur is so ecstatic. There's so many kirtans. There's so many advanced Vaishnavas. There's the Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's the most cherished moment where I can actually look at these scriptures and nourish the soul, nourish myself, my real identity. And I can really start to see the world as it is, not as the body says, not as the mode says, but as the world as it is. So yes, I'd like to conclude with this point. Here, the underlying point is this: what is our most important asset at this point? What would you say is your most important asset at this point? Somebody might say, my phone. Because with my phone I can serve, I can connect. My WhatsApp account, it can go, it can be disappeared. What is your most important asset? Have you thought about that? Have you reflected, anybody? What is your most important asset today, at this point, right now, here? Yes. Bhakti. But bhakti depends on something which holds knowledge. But I can know about trees and about botanics. Spiritual knowledge is getting there. So respect to the respect to the others, to the elders, devotees. Someone said time. Time is my most important asset. Okay. What did she say? Service. Service is very important. Krishna. Now you're getting very hard. What is the name of our movement? What is the name? What is the name of this society? For Krishna? Okay, so consciousness is your most important asset. Right? Now, that Prabhupada says, if many people talk about consciousness, but there's no consciousness really, everything is Krishna conscious. Because without Krishna, what is consciousness? So he was to the point. Krishna consciousness is the ever-encompassed asset of the whole universe. And that's your most cherished and important asset in your life. Now, when you talk of assets, let's talk about your mobile. How do you protect your mobile? Where do you keep your mobile? Proper place, right? In your pocket, in a bag, right? What about if you had some Lakshmi? Where is your Lakshmi? Is on the floor? Where is that? In a pocket. Well hidden, right? I don't see Lakshmi on the floor. It's well kept, right? Everybody has kept their Lakshmis very well, right? Okay. Now, where is your consciousness? In us. Which us? The body, the mind, my dhoti, the soul. And where is the soul? Then it starts to get difficult to answer, right? Where is the soul? Right? So Prabhupada says that the manifestation of the soul is the consciousness. And consciousness can be perceived by your actions, by your service, by your respect, by the values you have. So protecting that is the most important activity for us. That's why we're very careful what do we listen, who do we associate with, because all of that has a great effect on my consciousness. Actually, the mind has a form. You know, the mind is not something like just airy, flary. The mind has a form. That's how Lord Brahma creates the universe. He thinks of something, boom, the form is manifested. You start meditating, why don't I go preaching with Lokanath Swami? And all of a sudden, something starts to happen, and then a ticket comes. Next thing you know, you are chanting with Lokanath Swami. I know I'm telling you a true story. So, the mind is a creative organ. It was made like Krishna, but in a small quantity. We are minute creators. We are creating every minute. You know, you sit down, you meditate, some beautiful writing comes, that inspires people. People change their lives. People make money with your writing. Oh, this is an interesting thing. I can apply this, and they make money. So, we are creators, and that creation is born from consciousness. Consciousness is holding that together. That's your most important asset. That's why it's so important to fill in our lives with Krishna conscious, because otherwise it will be filled in by other things. And today, one of the most easiest way to fill in your life is right here. 1 minute, blip, and then you look. There you are, you're filled in. And then there's a beautiful article, a science, a video, and that video links to another video, in another movie, in another series, and when you see, you're just like, there you are, that's you now. Right? Hours, days, years, cobwebs, and what? We're not realizing, but actually our identity has shifted. Before, your identity was your clothes, your car, your family, your amount of gold you had. No, but now your identity is gradually being shifted to this box. How much you can buy, who you can talk to, and they control your identity because they can take parts of your identity. This service is taken. This website is hacked. And then all of a sudden, you're no one. You cannot buy anything. You cannot speak to anyone. You know, so it's very dangerous. And in some very wise communities in some countries, they have actually thought about it, how to be selective in their technology choices. How to choose. What do I want to choose for my life? Prabhupada speaks a lot about simple living. That's the thing. When you can simplify, it's usually the best system because it makes things very within your reach. Therefore, everything can be managed by yourself. Your neighbor connections, your brahmachari associations, isn't it? Like before, brahmachari association was sit together, read, and do something together, do a program together. When I was in that ashram, we used to sometimes travel together and do books together, and it was exciting because there was the whole mood of pleasing only, just thinking completely about Krishna. But gradually it becomes a sangha, a WhatsApp group for the brahmacharis, and you start to shift. And all of a sudden you're on the phone also. I see so many brahmacharis on the phone. Because the whole world is doing that. I'd like to end on a sweet note. And I did bring a sweet note. By the way, it's really interesting to research the different levels of consciousness. In our Veda, we have those 5 levels. Do you know? Everybody knows? Anamoy. So let's go slowly. Anamoy means eating, senses. And then the second one? Before Manamoy. Anamoy is 1. Number 2, Pranamoy, which is really a relationship with the world, right? The breath, right? And then the next one, Manamoy, the mind, the laws, nature. Humanity starts at Manamoy. Dharma, duty. The next one, Vijnanamoy, I know what is matter, what's spirit, what is the soul, what is not the soul. And finally, full spiritual bliss, Anandamoy. So that is the 5. So it's very interesting to look at this because we can see ourselves and we can check. At different moments, my consciousness is in different points. Where is it now? And then from there, you can protect your consciousness by saying, I'm not going to allow my consciousness just to be affected by all of this. I'm going to protect it. I want it to be ecstatic. And the last sweet note, which I brought for you, let's see if it's here. It says, oh yes, it's right here. It's right here. Prabhupada is saying this in Bhavan's newsletter. He was saying that, so he's devotee. So this is Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's gifts, that Kivalya Bhaktya. All the practices of austerity, penance, mystic yoga, and so on and on. There are so many things. Everything will be totally achieved simply by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, bhakti. So Prabhupada is telling us, it's so difficult to have all these qualities we have discussed, like Vidura is manifesting, Yudhishthira Maharaj is manifesting. It's so difficult to have those qualities, but simply by chanting, you develop those qualities. So that's a very important understanding that we have. And at this point, I'll open for comments and questions. Because we do have another 12 minutes for comments and questions. Yes, Prabhuji, we do have another mic, I'm advised, and for the benefit of the audience, you may want to.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you very much for the class. Very wonderful points which I got to know. But my question was that you said that we have to understand that what is my fault. We just keep thinking it's your fault, but then we don't see from the other side of the perspective, So, but then we see that Prabhupada had differences, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had differences, GBC level we have differences. There are the argument and all that. So obviously, I, with my own group, I'll also have differences. So it's just not that it's my fault.
I understood your point. It's a very good question. Thank you. What is your name, Prabhu? Kanai Giridhari Prabhu. Yes, wonderful question. And that question really is foundational, because the natural thing is to say it's my fault, it's my karma, and you just go like a wilted flower, right? And many Hindus in India have actually thought like that. And I'm in this caste, I cannot change anything, so I belong here. And everything becomes, and you have Brahman who says, I'm Brahman, but they don't have the qualities to be a Brahman, and they're acting like Brahmans. And then you have all this caste Brahmanism, which Prabhupada was really against, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was against. And that's where you get Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Swami talking loudly. Because there are elements in nature, in society, which have to be rectified. It's the duty of the spiritual master to rectify them. There are duties of kshatriyas which must be executed. And that's in the duty realm. But in the personal realm, you understand, this is happening because somewhere in the past I did something. Look at the example of Yudhishthira Maharaj. He did not want to fight. He tried every possible means to avoid war. He humbled himself, he was subjected to exile, everything. And what was his response? Forgiveness. But when the war time came, he understood war must be there, and he fought. He fought the war. He arranged the war. So your question we could shed light into your question by this. Understanding what's my duty, understanding where I have influence over, and understanding when is the time to intervene for the benefit of that person. That's when I intervene. When it's for the benefit of my own ego, my own self-preservation, that's not so necessary. You can do that, and many people do that. But in the end, the result will not be what the person originally intended. He wanted to correct, but he gets people angry at you. He said, but I'm right, he's the one wrong. And you don't get people saying, yes, you're right. So it's counterproductive, because you think by defending your ego, you'll be defended, but usually people are against you at the end. Have you seen two children fighting? I'm sure these two don't fight. They seem very maybe, right? But when two children are fighting, the mom says, none of you are correct because you're fighting. And they kind of say, oops, she started first, he started first. He said this to me, she said this to me, and they're pointing. And the mom comes in and says, no, none is right. And then she corrects each one. Right? So, the deep end of your question is guilt will not solve the problem. Self-penance will not solve the problem. What will solve the problem is reflection and change. So when there's a change of attitude, then there's a change. But if it's on your duty, on your responsibility, and on your realm of influence to act, then you have to act. Otherwise, you're considered out of place. Isn't it? Draupadi is being insulted, Bhishma is there, Drona is there. It's their duty to complain, but because of a political strategy, they cannot. Do you understand? Okay. Another comment, another reflection, another question? Right at the back, there's a microphone somewhere. And then there's one here. Okay. And one Prabhu has service. I think he has to leave. He wants to go, but not go. You have a question? You need to go. But thank you for coming. Thank you for attending. I appreciate it to be here. Hare Krishna, yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Would you like to read something?
Please.
This is from Srila Prabhupada's lecture, Seattle, October 4, 1968. Vishnu Jana Swami, how do we render perfect service to Krishna? Srila Prabhupada, by your anxiety, laughter, Haribol. If you are anxious to serve Krishna, that is the real asset. Krishna is unlimited. What service we can offer to him? And he has got unlimited servants also. What service he requires from you and me? He is perfect in himself. He doesn't require any service also. But if you are anxious to serve him, then he does not refuse. That is his mercy. That is his magnanimity. So the more you increase your anxiety to serve Krishna, the more it becomes perfect. He is unlimited. Your anxiety, you become unlimited. So there is a competition. The more you serve Krishna, the more he accepts you, and the more he gives you intelligence. You see? So the spiritual world is unlimited. There is no end of service, and there is no end of accepting the service. It is not that. So eagerness. Tatra laulyam eka mulyam. It means laulyam is our greed to serve Krishna. Mulyam means asset. I am not manufacturing the answer, but I am giving you evidence from Srila Rupa Goswami, our Acharya. He says, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate. My dear gentlemen, my dear boys and girls, if you can purchase your sense of loving Krishna, how can I love Krishna more and more? This much, this anxiety, if you can purchase this matihi, means intelligence. It is very nice intelligence. How shall I serve Krishna? Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati. Mati means intelligence or status of mind, that I will serve Krishna. If you can purchase this status of mind anywhere, please immediately purchase. The next question will be, all right, I shall purchase. What is the price? Do you know? Yes, I know what is the price. What is that price? Laulyam. Simply your eagerness, that's all. Laulyam ekam mulyam. That I can have. No, na. Janma kotibir sukritibir labhyate. This eagerness, how to love Krishna, this is not available even after many, many births. So if you have a pinch of that anxiety, how can I serve Krishna? You must know you are the most fortunate man. A pinch only, laulya, this anxiety, how can I serve Krishna? it is very nice. Then Krishna will give you intelligence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reading. Actually, your reading is very nice. Thank you for bringing. What's your name, Prabhu? Patita Pavana Gaudadas. Hare Krishna. Oh, Nitai Gaur. Oh, Nitai and Gaur together, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your reading. And that lolyan is given by your consciousness. Because your consciousness of service, I want to serve, is nurtured by your conscious. And that conscious is fed by your association. So thank you. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Thank you. We have two questions. You have yours and his. So, okay, so let's try to end it on time.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thanks for a very nice class. Lot of practical aspects that you touched upon, especially on how consciousness is very important and how we need to preserve that. So I have a question in this regard, Prabhu. So you are mentioning about how the technology is bringing about damage to our consciousness, right? The WhatsApp, the social media, Facebook and things like that. But we also understand from Srila Prabhupada's teachings that we need to practice yukta vairagya. So we need to make use of material things for Krishna consciousness, for spreading Krishna consciousness. So these social media can also be used for propagating Krishna consciousness. But then I understand your point that on a personal note, when we are trying to make use of this, we rather succumb to it. We get entrapped rather than making use of it for the right purpose. So on a practical note, how do we draw a line that, when we are making use of these technologies, we don't get entrapped to it, but then we make use of it for the right purpose. So how do you draw a line on a practical note, and how do we judge to ourselves that we are making use of it in the right sense?
Thank you for the beautiful question, a very relevant question, because more and more ISKCON now is going online, which is really important because everybody's online, so you need to be there. So it's not that ISKCON can just say, no, we will be absent. There's no question on that. It's absolutely relevant. To answer your question, first I'll bring an example from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He went for a preaching program and he arranged for the most fabulous car, like in India, like the top model of the Mercedes today, and he went on it. He arranged his disciple to get that car and he went there. And they did the program, it was beautiful. And after the program, they kind of was going to open the door for him to enter the car. He says, no, I don't need the car anymore. I've used it for what I wanted. Now I'll walk. And he walked to the temple. So you see in a very clear cut, what is he using this for? And to keep that clear mentality is really important, because the way the devices are designed today is that it's so practical. It's an ecosystem of services that once you take one service, you take all the services. And they become so like integrated, that's the word, with your services. If you're a video designer, if you're an IT developer, that's what you do, you integrate. So then a person who doesn't have that facility now has it, and it becomes part of his life. You want to make a video, just do this, do that, and boom, your video is out, and so many people saw it, got inspired in Krishna consciousness. So how to draw the line of the dependence on that integration and on the service that you render? That is the question which many wise communities have made and really thought it through. You know, the shape it might take might be you limit your time. You say, okay, from this time to this time I answer the message, but not every time it beeps. Or different techniques. Each person will have a different technique. But it's really important, because otherwise what happens is, in the name of yukta vairagya, you become part of the machine. So you went in to help others who were in the machine to get illuminated, but you yourself are caught in the machine. So we must be out of the clogs of the machine to be able to say, no, do this, now don't take so much time, do your chanting here, do your reading here. And Prabhupada was really asking us to read his books. That is something which really helps, because that keeps us sober. Yes, I'm really eager to hear your question. You have a microphone there, and What is your name?
Harshit.
Hashit?
Yes. This question isn't related to class, so may I like still ask it? This question isn't related to class.
It's not related. Yes, you can ask.
Okay.
The class is almost over.
If Krishna is a super soul and he created everything, then why did he create us?
If Krishna, wow, you have a deep question. It could be a whole Bhagavatam, it could be a whole seminar of a few months. Actually, people are still deciding on some of those topics you have pointed in your question. But there's a very simple answer to that. Krishna loves you and me and everyone in this room. And he was desiring our association. So he just manifested for the enhancement of rasa and pleasure. Does that answer your question?
I guess so.
I guess your next question, why are we here in this miserable material world, right? And the answer to that is because at one point, believe it or not, we wanted it. And how did we want? We just gazed. Do you know when you're in the temple room and Madhava's there, but you're talking to your friend? You know, like sometimes Madhava is beautiful there, and you're just here talking to your friend about a kirtan, about something. He's there, but you're talking. Just like that. He was in front, and then we are just wandering, and that wandering brought us right here. And that in itself is a whole now discussion which can take years. Where did the soul come from? And we're not going to go there. Okay? But there are many scholars who have deeply written about that. But I could say something simple on that note. It's more important to know how we're going to go back to Krishna than to understand how we came here. Right? As it's more important to know how you're going to be a part of ISKCON rather than how you came to ISKCON. It's important, but it's something in the past. You're here now. How are you going to make a difference? How are you going to chant all your rounds? How are you going to transcend the three modes of material nature? How are you going to make a career which allows you time to read and chant at the same time? That's an important question. I'm going to choose a career which is going to take all my time, I have no time for Krishna anymore, or am I going to take a career which I have a career but I have Krishna's also? Those are the important choices. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think it's time to end. Dhṛtarāṣṭra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Mayapurdam ki jai, Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.